There's a particular kind of mental noise that never seems to stop. The endless churning of thoughts that replay conversations, rehearse worries, analyze every detail of what happened and what might happen next, keeping you trapped in your own head even when you desperately want peace. What most people don't realize about this constant mental chatter is that it's not actually thinking, it's rumination. Real thinking has a purpose, a direction, an end point. Rumination is the mind spinning its wheels, going over the same material again and again without reaching any resolution. You replay that awkward conversation from last week, dissecting every word. You rehearse arguments with people who aren't even present. You cycle through worst-case scenarios for situations that may never occur. This mental loop feels productive because it's so active, so engaging. Your mind convinces you that if you just think about it enough, analyze it thoroughly enough, you'll finally solve whatever problem it's fixated on. But rumination doesn't solve problems. It amplifies them. It takes a single worry and turns it into a symphony of anxiety. It transforms a moment of embarrassment into lasting shame. It converts uncertainty into a mental prison where you're both the guard and the prisoner. The pattern often starts innocently. Maybe you developed this habit during a stressful period when constant vigilance felt necessary for survival. Perhaps you learned that thinking through every angle was how responsible people prepared for life's challenges. Or maybe your mind learned to stay busy with thoughts as a way to avoid feeling emotions that seem too overwhelming to face directly. The hidden cost of living with this constant mental noise extends far beyond just feeling mentally tired. It affects your ability to be present with the people you love because part of your attention is always elsewhere. Replaying, analyzing, preparing. You miss beautiful moments because your mind is rehashing old grievances. You can't fully enjoy experiences because you're already mentally critiquing them or worrying about how they'll end. This constant rumination also disconnects you from your intuition and inner wisdom. When your mind is always chattering, you can't hear the quieter voice that knows what you truly need, want, or should do next. You lose access to the part of yourself that doesn't need to figure everything out through analysis, the part that simply knows through direct experience and feeling. Over time, this creates a particular kind of mental fatigue where even rest doesn't bring peace. You lie down at night, and your mind immediately starts its familiar routines. You try to meditate and get pulled into thought spirals. You attempt to enjoy leisure time, but find yourself distracted by the mental noise that never seems to pause. The very organ meant to serve you has become a source of suffering. There's a profound truth that changes everything once you truly understand it. You are not your thoughts. You are the awareness that notices thoughts. Thoughts are simply mental events, no different from sounds in the environment or sensations in your body. They arise, exist for a moment, and then pass away. The problem isn't the thoughts themselves, but your relationship to them. The way you've been treating every mental event as important, true, and requiring your immediate attention. This insight reveals that rumination is fundamentally a case of mistaken identity. You've been believing that the mental noise is you thinking, when actually it's just mental activity happening in the space of your awareness. Just as you wouldn't identify with every sound you hear or every sensation you feel, you don't need to identify with every thought that arises. You can observe mental activity without being consumed by it. Understanding this distinction is like discovering you've been standing too close to a movie screen. So close that you couldn't see. It was just projected images. When you step back, You realize you're in a theater, watching a show. The images are still there, but they no longer overwhelm your entire field of vision. Similarly, when you step back from mental activity, thoughts continue to arise, but they no longer dominate your experience. The practice begins with simply noticing when you're caught in rumination. This isn't about stopping thoughts or emptying your mind. It's about recognizing when you've been pulled into the mental movie and gently stepping back into the awareness that's watching it. The moment you notice, "I'm ruminating about that conversation again," you've already stepped back into awareness. That noticing itself is the solution. Start treating thoughts like weather, observing them without needing to control them. When you notice the familiar mental loops beginning, instead of getting caught up in the content, simply acknowledge, "The mind is doing its worry routine," or "There's that replay pattern again." This creates space between you and the mental activity, reducing its hypnotic power over your attention. Practice the art of not finishing every thought that starts. Just because a worry begins doesn't mean you need to follow it to its conclusion. Just because your mind starts analyzing something doesn't mean you need to participate in that analysis. You can notice the beginning of a familiar mental pattern and choose to redirect your attention elsewhere, to your breath, to your body, to what's actually happening around you right now. Use your body as an anchor when the mind gets too noisy. Physical sensations always exist in the present moment, while rumination always takes you into past or future scenarios. Feel your feet on the floor, notice your breathing, or pay attention to the temperature of the air on your skin. These simple practices interrupt the thought loops and bring you back to what's actually here. As you practice this new relationship with your thoughts, something remarkable happens. The volume of mental noise naturally decreases, not because you're suppressing anything, but because you're no longer feeding the rumination with your attention and belief. Thoughts still arise, but they don't stick around as long when they're not being entertained and elaborated upon. Your mind becomes more spacious, more peaceful. Instead of feeling like a cramped room filled with chattering voices, your mental space feels more like a vast sky where thoughts can arise and pass without creating disturbance. You begin to access the natural clarity and stillness that was always there beneath the noise. A clarity that doesn't need to think its way to solutions, but simply knows what to do. This doesn't make you less intelligent or less capable of solving problems. If anything, it makes you more effective because you can think when thinking is useful and rest when it's not. You develop the ability to engage your analytical mind when you need it and set it aside when you don't. Your thinking becomes a tool you use rather than a master that controls you. Relationships improve because you're more present, more available for genuine connection. Work becomes more focused because you're not constantly distracted by mental chatter. Rest becomes truly restful because your mind can actually be still. You discover what it feels like to be peacefully alive in your own consciousness rather than constantly agitated by mental noise. The quiet mind isn't empty or dull. It's spacious and clear. It's the difference between a muddy pond where you can't see the bottom and a clear lake where everything is visible. In that clarity, wisdom emerges naturally. Creativity flows more freely. Solutions appear without forcing. You remember what it feels like to think clearly rather than think constantly. So, if something in this message resonates with your own experience of mental noise and rumination, leave a comment with the word quiet. Let it be a reminder that beneath all the mental chatter, there's a space of natural peace that's always been there, waiting for you to notice it. And if these words feel like something you need to remember regularly, subscribe. There's more here for you. Not strategies for controlling your mind, but invitations to discover the stillness that's your birthright. The quiet that makes both thinking and not thinking possible.